What happens when a beloved morning television host loses her cool in just 46 seconds? A complete meltdown on live television, a shouting match that shook the entire studio, and one of Britain's most famous comedians walking off, set in absolute disgust. Last night's episode of Lorraine became the most explosive confrontation British daytime TV has ever witnessed. Before we dive into this chaos, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We bring you daily videos exposing Britain's darkest scandals, the confrontations they don't want you to see, and the moments that get buried by the mainstream media. Hit that subscribe button now because you won't want to miss what we uncover next. The cameras were rolling live as Ricky Gervais settled into the guest chair across from Lorraine Kelly. The studio audience sat quietly, expecting the usual light-hearted banter that Lorraine's morning show is known for. Gervais had just released a new stand-up special, and everyone assumed this would be another promotional appearance, filled with laughs and witty exchanges. Nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold. Lorraine started with her signature warm smile, welcoming Ricky to the show. "So lovely to have you here, Ricky," she said, her Scottish accent flowing through the studio. "Your new special is getting quite a lot of attention, isn't it?" Ricky leaned back in his chair, that familiar smirk on his face. "Yeah, it's doing well. People seem to enjoy comedy that doesn't apologize for being comedy, you know?" Lorraine's smile tightened just slightly. "Yes, well, some people have said you cross the line sometimes. Don't you think comedians have a responsibility to be mindful of what they say?" The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the usual softball question Lorraine was known for. Ricky noticed it too, his eyebrows raising just a bit. "A responsibility? To who exactly?" Ricky replied, his tone still playful, but with an edge. "Comedy's job is to push boundaries, to make people think. If everyone's comfortable, then I'm not doing my job right." Lorraine leaned forward, and her voice took on a sharper quality. "But when you make jokes about certain communities, about sensitive topics, aren't you just punching down? Isn't that just being cruel for the sake of it?" The tension in the studio became palpable. Crew members behind the cameras exchanged worried glances. This was supposed to be a light morning chat, not a confrontation. Ricky's smile faded. "Hold on, punching down? I make jokes about everyone, including myself. That's equality. What you're suggesting is that some groups are too fragile to handle comedy, which is actually more insulting than any joke I could make." "That's not what I'm saying at all," Lorraine shot back, her voice rising slightly. "What I'm saying is that when you have a platform as big as yours, maybe you should think about the impact of your words." "Impact?" Ricky laughed, but it wasn't his usual warm chuckle. "Lorraine, comedy is about making people laugh, not worrying about who might get offended. If we sanitize everything, if we self-censor every joke because someone somewhere might not like it, then what's the point? We might as well just sit here and read a corporate mission statement." The audience was dead silent now. You could hear the hum of the studio lights. Lorraine's face was flushing red, and her hands gripped the arms of her chair. "So you think anything goes? You think there should be no limits whatsoever?" she pressed, her voice getting louder. "I think comedy should be free," Ricky responded firmly. "I think comedians should be able to talk about anything, and audiences can decide if they want to watch or not. Nobody's forcing anyone to watch my specials. But what I won't do is bow down to people who want to police language and decide what's acceptable for everyone else." Lorraine shook her head vigorously. "That's such a privileged position to take, Ricky. You don't face the consequences of these jokes. The marginalized communities you mock, they're the ones who suffer." "Mock?" Ricky's voice raised now, too. "I don't mock anyone. I make observations about the world. And frankly, Lorraine, this idea that comedy needs to be approved by some moral committee is exactly the kind of authoritarian thinking that terrifies me. You're basically saying that your sensibilities should dictate what I can and can't say." "I'm saying you should be more thoughtful," Lorraine snapped back. "Is that too much to ask? To just be a bit more considerate?" "Considerate?" Ricky was sitting up straight now, no longer relaxed. "I'm considerate of the truth. I'm considerate of not lying to people. What you're asking for is censorship, dressed up as kindness." The producer was frantically gesturing from off-camera, but Lorraine wasn't looking. She was locked in on Ricky, her jaw set firm. "You know what, Ricky? I think the problem is that you've been surrounded by yes men for so long that you've forgotten what it's like to be challenged. You've built this little bubble where you think you're the defender of free speech, but really, you're just defending your right to be unpleasant." The studio audience gasped. This was unheard of on a morning show. Ricky's face hardened. Unpleasant? That's rich coming from someone who's made a career out of being aggressively cheerful while never actually saying anything of substance. "At least I stand for something. At least my work means something beyond selling tea and biscuits to pensioners watching at home." Lorraine's mouth dropped open. The audience was completely stunned. A few nervous laughs rippled through, unsure if this was some kind of planned bit. "How dare you?" Lorraine said quietly, her voice shaking. "How dare you come on my show and insult me like that?" "You started it," Ricky fired back. "You invited me here under the pretense of promoting my work, and instead you've ambushed me with this moral grandstanding. Did you think I'd just sit here and nod along while you lectured me? I'm asking legitimate questions that my viewers want answered." Lorraine's voice was getting shrill now. "They want to know why you think it's okay to hurt people with your words." "I don't hurt people with my words," Ricky said firmly. "Words don't hurt people. Actual violence hurts people. Poverty hurts people. Disease hurts people. A joke? A bloody joke doesn't hurt anyone. And if you can't tell the difference, then that's your problem, not mine." Lorraine stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is my show, Ricky. My show. And I won't sit here and let you lecture me about what matters and what doesn't." Ricky stood up too, pulling off his microphone. "Oh, so now we get to the truth. This isn't about protecting anyone. This is about your ego. You can't handle someone disagreeing with you on your own show. Get out," Lorraine said, her voice trembling with rage. "Get out of my studio." The crew was frozen. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of this car crash. The director didn't even think to cut to commercial. This was live television history happening in real time. "Gladly," Ricky said, tossing his microphone onto the chair. "But before I go, let me say this to your viewers. Don't let anyone tell you what you can and can't laugh at. Don't let hosts like this dictate your sense of humor or your sense of right and wrong. Think for yourselves." "Security!" Lorraine called out, her voice cracking. "Get him out of here." "I'm going," Ricky said, raising his hands. "Don't worry. I wouldn't want to spend another second in this fake, sanitized corporate hellhole anyway." The atmosphere had gone from uncomfortable to absolutely nuclear. Lorraine was shaking with fury, her carefully maintained television persona completely shattered. Her makeup couldn't hide the red blotches spreading across her face. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" Lorraine shouted as Ricky started walking toward the exit. "You think you're brave for saying controversial things? You're not brave, Ricky. You're just a bully with a microphone." Ricky stopped and turned back. "A bully? I'm a bully? You invited me on your show just to attack me. You've spent the last 10 minutes trying to paint me as some kind of monster because I don't agree with your worldview. And I'm the bully? You make fun of vulnerable people," Lorraine screamed, completely losing her composure. "You mock them, and then hide behind 'it's just comedy,' like that makes it okay." "I make fun of ideas, Lorraine. Ideas, not people. If you can't separate a person from their beliefs, then you're the one with the problem. And vulnerable? Everyone's vulnerable. Everyone has something they're sensitive about. That doesn't mean those topics should be off limits for comedy." A producer finally rushed onto the set, trying to de-escalate. "Okay, let's everyone just take a breath." "No," Lorraine cut him off. "No, I want an answer. Ricky, do you honestly not see how your comedy hurts people? Do you not care at all?" Ricky took a deep breath, his voice dropping to a more serious tone. "I see how it offends people. Offense and hurt aren't the same thing. And no, I don't care if I offend people, because being offended is a choice. You choose to be offended. Nobody makes you feel that way. You hear something, you decide how to react to it. And if you decide to be offended, that's on you. That's absolute rubbish," Lorraine shot back. "When you make jokes about transgender people, about disabled people, about any marginalized group, those people don't choose to be hurt by it. You're targeting them." "I'm targeting ideologies," Ricky corrected sharply. "There's a difference. I've never made fun of someone for being transgender. I've made jokes about gender ideology, about the contradictions in certain arguments. That's not the same thing, And if you can't see that distinction, then you're being willfully ignorant. The audience was completely silent, watching this play out like a tennis match. Some looked uncomfortable. Others were leaning forward, captivated by the raw confrontation. Lorraine laughed bitterly. There it is. Anyone who disagrees with you is willfully ignorant. Very convenient, Ricky. Very convenient that anyone who challenges you is just too stupid to understand your genius. That's not what I said, Ricky replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. I said if you can't distinguish between making fun of a person and making fun of an idea, then yes, you're missing something fundamental. It's like saying you can't criticize Christianity without hating Christians. It's absurd. Don't you dare compare this to religion, Lorraine snapped. People's identities aren't up for debate like religious beliefs are. Actually, they are, Ricky countered. Everything's up for debate. That's how a free society works. We debate ideas, we challenge each other, we argue. What you want is a world where certain ideas are protected from criticism, and that's dangerous. That's how authoritarianism starts. Lorraine's face twisted with anger. Oh, so now I'm an authoritarian? I'm a fascist because I think you should be nicer? Do you hear yourself? I didn't call you a fascist, Ricky said, his voice steady. But the impulse to control speech, to decide what can and can't be said, that is authoritarian. And yes, it can come from a place of wanting to be kind, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The producer tried again. Folks, maybe we should... Stay out of this, Malcolm. Lorraine barked at the producer, who immediately backed away. She turned back to Ricky. You know what your real problem is? You've made millions of pounds being offensive, and now you're terrified that society's moving on without you. You're clinging to this free speech argument because you know that without the shock value, you're not actually that funny. The audience audibly gasped. This was a direct personal attack, and everyone knew it. Ricky's expression went completely cold. Wow, he said quietly. That's what you really think? After everything I've done, after decades of comedy, multiple awards, sold-out shows around the world, you think I'm just shock value? I think you hide behind controversy because it gets you attention, Lorraine said venomously. I think you realized a long time ago that being provocative is easier than being genuinely clever. So that's your whole brand now. Look at me. I said something naughty. Aren't I brave? Ricky's hands clenched into fists at his sides. You don't know the first thing about my work. You clearly haven't watched my specials. You haven't listened to what I actually say. You've just read some headlines and decided I'm the villain. I've seen enough, Lorraine replied coldly. I've seen enough to know that you prioritize your own ego over other people's well-being. That's not comedy, Ricky. That's just being a git. And what you're doing right now, on live television, attacking a guest who came here in good faith. What's that? Is that being professional? Is that being kind? Ricky's voice was rising again. You've spent this entire interview trying to provoke me, trying to get me to lose my temper so you can, what, prove some point? Make yourself look like the moral authority? I'm trying to hold you accountable, Lorraine shouted. Someone has to. You waltz around saying whatever you want, and nobody challenges you because they're scared you'll mock them on Twitter. Well, I'm not scared of you, Ricky Gervais. I never asked anyone to be scared of me. Ricky shot back. I just asked that people actually listen to what I say, instead of putting words in my mouth. But you're not interested in listening, are you? You've already decided who I am. You've shown us who you are, Lorraine said bitterly. Over and over again. And it's not pretty. The studio was electric with tension. The crew didn't know where to look. The audience was riveted, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Ricky shook his head slowly. You know what the saddest part of this is? You used to be a real journalist. You used to ask actual questions, do real interviews. But now you're just another daytime TV host, desperate to stay relevant by manufacturing outrage. This whole thing was a setup from the beginning, wasn't it? How dare you? Lorraine began, but Ricky cut her off. No, how dare you? How dare you invite me on your show under false pretenses, just so you could grandstand and feel morally superior? You don't care about any marginalized groups. You care about looking good to your audience. This is all performance for you. Get off my stage, Lorraine screamed, her voice breaking. Get off my stage right now. With pleasure, Ricky said coldly. But let me tell you something, Lorraine. In 10 years, nobody's going to remember this show. Nobody's going to remember your fake sincerity or your manufactured outrage. But they'll still be watching my comedy because at least it's honest. At least it's real. Out! Lorraine shrieked, pointing toward the exit with a shaking hand. Ricky turned to the camera, addressing the viewers directly. Thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry you had to see this. Remember, always question people who claim to speak for others. Always be skeptical of those who try to control what you can laugh at. And never, ever trust someone whose entire personality is just being nice on camera. Security! Security! Lorraine was screaming now, her face purple with rage. 2 security guards rushed onto the set, looking confused about what they were supposed to do. Ricky held up his hands. I'm leaving. Don't worry. No need for the muscle. He looked back at Lorraine one final time. You should be ashamed of yourself. This was a disgrace. I should be ashamed. Lorraine laughed hysterically. That's rich coming from you. You've built a career on shame, on making people feel small. And you want to lecture me? I've built a career on laughter, Ricky corrected. On making people think. On challenging assumptions. You've built a career on being inoffensive and boring. There's a reason your ratings have been dropping for years. That hit a nerve. Lorraine's face went from red to white. Get him out, she said to the security guards, her voice deadly quiet now. Get him out of my sight. The security guards awkwardly moved toward Ricky, who was already walking away. As he reached the edge of the set, he turned back one more time. You know what's really funny, Lorraine? You just proved my point better than I ever could. You lost control. You lashed out. You showed your true colors. And all because someone disagreed with you. Thanks for the material. This'll make a great bit in my next special. Fuck off! Lorraine screamed, completely abandoning any pretense of professionalism. The audience gasped in shock at hearing that word on morning television. Just fuck off, you arrogant prick. Ricky smiled for the first time since the argument began. There it is. The real you. Finally. He walked off the set, past the shocked crew members, past the cameras, and straight out the studio door. The slam echoed through the silent studio. Lorraine stood there shaking, mascara running down her face, her chest heaving. The camera stayed on her for what felt like an eternity. She looked around at her crew, at the audience, at the cameras, and seemed to realize what had just happened. We need to, she stammered, trying to regain composure. We need to go to commercial. Now. Cut to commercial. But before the feed cut, viewers at home saw Lorraine collapse back into her chair, her head in her hands. The last image before the commercial break was of a morning show host completely broken. Her carefully crafted image shattered into a million pieces on live television. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud, boo, or just leave. Some pulled out their phones, already recording and uploading what they'd just witnessed. This wasn't just a heated interview gone wrong. This was a complete meltdown, a total destruction of the fourth wall that separates television personalities from real people. In the hallway outside the studio, Ricky Gervais walked toward the exit, his jaw set firm. Staff members pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, afraid to make eye contact. He didn't look angry anymore. He looked disappointed. Disappointed that what should have been a simple conversation about comedy had turned into a witch hunt. Disappointed that someone he'd respected as a fellow broadcaster had revealed herself to be just another censor in disguise. Back in the studio, Lorraine was being comforted by her producer, who was frantically trying to figure out how to salvage the rest of the show. But there was no salvaging this. The damage was done. The mask had slipped, and millions of viewers had seen what lay beneath. As Ricky pushed through the studio's exit door into the cold morning air, he paused for just a moment. He thought about going back, about trying to end things on better terms. But no, some arguments can't be resolved. Some differences run too deep. This was one of those times. He walked to his car, got in, and drove away, leaving behind a studio in chaos and a host in tears. The confrontation that was supposed to be about comedy, about jokes, about entertainment, had become something much bigger. It had become a perfect example of what happens when two completely incompatible worldviews collide on live television, when the careful dance of media interviews breaks down, and when people forget that they're supposed to be professionals. The studio door swung shut behind him, and with it closed the chapter on one of the most explosive moments in British television history.